Thank you very much, Hocam. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is ÖZGE PELİN NAZLI. I work at a secondary school in Sivas. Welcome to today's session. Today I will present my study, Telecollaborative Digital Storytelling, a task for enhancing young EFL learners' intercultural communicative competence. As a language teacher, I found the study quite useful in my own teaching, so I hope you find it useful for yourself too. I will talk about my learner profile in the methodology part. So first of all, I would like to start with a brief introduction. As we all know, globalization has increased the number of social situations in which individuals have to communicate with not only native, but also non-native speakers of English. Therefore, the status of English language has changed from a mere foreign language to a global lingua franca in order to sustain intercultural communication between members of different language communities. With this change in the status of English, the main objective of English language education has reformed from the mere development of learners' language skills to the development of their intercultural communicative competence. So the question is, what is ICC, or intercultural communicative competence? According to Michael Byram, intercultural communicative competence is the ability to maintain appropriate communication by not only using skills, but also knowledge, attitudes, skills, and critical cultural awareness. As we all know, our learners may have advanced language skills in the target language. However, they may fail to convey their opinions or interpret messages when they don't have the necessary intercultural knowledge or attitude. Therefore, raising students who are not only able to use language properly, but at the same time having the knowledge or attitude is of importance. Or briefly, ICC is of importance in language education. According to Byram and Dua, primary education period is the most advantageous cycle. And similarly, according to Kirsch, providing intercultural communication opportunities in the earlier stages may enhance positive attitudes and decrease monocentric orientations. Therefore, ICC should be integrated to curricular activities in the earlier stages of education. However, even though the importance of ICC has been recognized well in the literature, there remains a practical gap not only in Turkey but across the globe, in America, in Italy, in Spain. So the present study aims to fulfill the practical gap in the literature and provide a classroom-based practice to enhance young learners' ICC through digital stories. And with this aim, the present study intends to respond to these research questions. Do telecollaborative digital stories foster ICC of Turkish and Portuguese learners? And do these exchanges foster intercultural sensitivity of learners? So let's talk about these key terms because they are so theoretical. First of all, intercultural communicative competence is the ability to maintain appropriate communication by using knowledge, attitude, and skills effectively. Digital stories, on the other hand, are short tales conveyed in first person and demonstrated in movie format. And when it comes to telecollaboration, it's a technology-oriented intercultural communication opportunity. So we have three telecollaboration models in the world. One of them is e-tandem, one of them is Cultura, and one of them is so well known in Turkey, e-twinning. And in my study, I utilized e-twinning model for intercultural communication. So let me talk about my study. First of all, a telecollaboration project was established on e-twinning platform, and 2 middle schools were volunteered for this project. One from Turkey and one from Portugal. So 15 students were selected from each partner school via purpose of sampling method, and these students' ages ranged between 9 and 10. In planning process, Gutenhelm's pedagogy of multiliteracies was utilized, and these plans were arranged for 7-week periods. In line with this pedagogy, I included 3 task types in my study: personal information exchange, comparison and analysis, and collaborative assignments. And each task type included 3 cycles as situated practice, overt instruction, and critical framing. I know it looks so theoretical, but I'm gonna delve deeper and actually they are so simple. It's actually what we do on e-twinning projects. First of all, in the first week, I utilized personal information exchange task, and in situated practice phase, students introduced themselves through digital narratives. They introduced their name, age, hobbies, likes and dislikes, and they uploaded their digital narratives on e-twinning platform. In overt instruction phase, I, the Turkish teacher, worked with my Turkish students, whereas the Portuguese teacher worked with her own students on separate Zoom meetings. And this time, the students watched not only their own digital narratives, but their partners' digital narratives, and they compared and contrasted the cultural practices between Turkey and Portugal. Here, our aim was to deepen their analyses. As we know, watching something doesn't necessarily render to critical thinking, so our aim was to deepen their critical analyses. And then, in critical reflection phase, students reflected on their experiences and learnings on their learner diaries. Then, on the second, third, and fourth weeks were projected into comparison and analysis tasks. And this time, in situated practice, students didn't introduce themselves, but they introduced their local culture to one another. In the second week, they introduced their dressing style and uniforms. In the third week, they introduced their local food, and in the fourth week they introduced customs, traditions and songs in their own culture. When these students uploaded their digital narratives on e-twinning platform, we moved on to the overt instruction phase, and we did the same thing. Our students met on Zoom platform separately, and they discussed on the similarities and differences between both cultures. Again, the aim was to deepen the critical analysis, and in reflection they reflected on their experiences and learning. However, we did something different on 5th, 6th, and 7th weeks. This time we benefited from collaborative assignments, and we utilized a story circle activity. In situated practice, Portuguese and Turkish students were assigned into multicultural groups, so they had the opportunity to work together. So first of all, Turkish students started to a digital narrative on Storybird platform. They selected the template, the character, and they wrote the character's morning routines, and they halted in a part, and then Portuguese students entered to the same platform with the same user identity and password, and this time they completed the characters' afternoon and evening routines. However, in this period, they entered the platform multiple times, and they complemented one another's works, or they gave feedback to one another, or they corrected one another's mistake. And in overt instruction phase, this time students didn't compare and contrast both cultures, but they reflected on their experiences on these Zoom meetings. And in critical reflection, again, they reflected on their experiences and learnings. So, explanatory sequential mixed method design was utilized in the process, and data were collected from multiple instruments: IS-15 scale developed by Wang and Zhu, learner diaries, semi-structured interviews, and research journals. And quantitative analysis was carried out through descriptive statistics, paired samples t-test, and independent samples t-test, whereas qualitative analysis was carried out through constant comparison analysis through Michael Byram's and Bennett's framework. So actually these frameworks are quite easy to understand. Michael Byram's model says that in order to have a healthy relationship, we need 5 factors. Having skills are not enough, so we need to know about the target culture and our own culture. We need to have the attitude of curiosity and openness towards other cultures. We need to have interpreting skills. We need to get the information, process it correctly. We need to understand them correctly. And we need to have discovery and interaction skills. We need to obtain new knowledge by using multiple skills and strategies. And cultural awareness is of importance as well. And Bennett's model says that students begin with ethnocentric perspectives. In other words, they have some sort of negativity in themselves. They either reject the differences. For example, they can't differentiate between Japanese and Korean culture. Or some students can differentiate between those cultures, but they think that one culture is superior to the other culture. For example, Korean culture is superior to Japanese culture. However, as they engage in more intercultural dialogue, they begin minimizing these differences, or they start accepting these differences, or they develop the ability of empathy. They put themselves into others' shoes. So I analyzed my first research question through Bennett's framework. So I analyzed their knowledge, attitudes, skills, and awareness. So in Byram's model, knowledge dimension encompasses one's knowledge of their own culture and the target culture. So the Turkish students should know about their own culture in order to understand foreign cultures better. So in terms of their own culture, both Turkish and Portuguese students stated that they didn't learn anything new about their own culture. However, they recognized some intracultural differences within their own nation. For example, one Turkish student said this: "Hocam, some of us drink tea or milk in the breakfast, but some of us drink compost or hoşaf in breakfast." So if these differences are normal in our own culture, it's so normal to have these differences in other cultures. So Portuguese students are different, but it's so normal. We are different, actually. So critical self-awareness supported critical cultural awareness here. When it comes to knowledge dimension, both groups stated that they heard the names of their partner country for the first time. Turkish students didn't know anything about Portugal, and Portuguese students didn't know anything about Turkey. However, they enhanced their knowledge over time. They learned about the products, for example, songs, music, food, or practices such as customs and traditions. However, these are young learners, so they couldn't learn anything new about religious systems, social systems, because their abstract thinking skills are still developing. When it comes to attitudes, Turkish students had communication apprehension, because they were foreigners, they were so afraid of failing in the communication. When it comes to Portuguese students, they had digital apprehension because they didn't use Story Jumper website or Book Creator or Storybird before. However, they completed the digital narrative successfully, and their attitudes changed towards positivity, and they started finding similarities more than differences. For example, both Portuguese and Turkish group were having the same meals, or they both had kebab, or they both had tomato soup, or they were playing the same online games, they were having similar courses at school. So seeing similarities enhanced their attitude as well. When it comes to skills of discovery, they developed their 4 main and 3 sub-skills. According to teachers, students understood better in reading and listening, and they began writing faster, and teachers began giving fewer corrections over time in pronunciation and writing. When it comes to skills of interpreting and relating, students lacked the intercultural knowledge at first, and they conducted false reasoning. For example, one Portuguese student said this: "Hocam, Turkey doesn't have trees, mountains, or seas." I asked, the Portuguese teacher asked why, and they answered, "I don't know, but they can't because they live below in the map." However, over time, they started conducting more accurate reasoning, more analytical reasoning over time. For example, one Portuguese student said this: "Hocam, teacher, I'm sorry, teacher, the Turkish school has taken its name from a famous wrestler, and Portuguese school has taken its name from a famous doctor. So both Turkey and Portugal give importance to medicine, art, or sports and music. So it's a great deduction for a 9-year-old kid, to be honest." And when it comes to critical cultural awareness, students withdrew their negative judgments in the beginning, and they started seeing other cultures more positively, and I explained them further in my second research question. At the beginning of the study, some students rejected the idea of differences between cultures. For example, one Turkish student said this: "Hocam, we wake up, go to school, come home, do homework and sleep. We play the same game. So Portuguese and Turkish cultures are the same thing. They are the same." However, most of the students said that their own culture was superior to the other culture, or vice versa. They said, Portuguese students said that we have better technology, so our culture is better. Or Turkish students said that we have better families. I don't know what that means, but we have better families, better natural beauty, so our culture was better. However, in the second, third, and fourth weeks, students identified similarities more than differences. So they saw similarities in breakfast habits, eating daily routines, eating food, anything, songs, music, dances, and this time they minimized their defensive attitude. And in the 5th, 6th, and 7th weeks, this time they started working together with their forum partners, and working together established a friendship bond between them. So they started seeing their partners as their friends, and this time they started seeing the differences, but they accepted them. They have this difference, but it's okay. It's quite normal. They are our friends. And in the last 2 weeks, I observed a micro level of adaptation in the form of empathy. In the last week, students said this: Hocam, if I were my Portuguese partner, I would feel unhappy if we don't include their food on our digital narratives. Or Portuguese students said this: if I were my Turkish friend, I would feel sad if we don't include any material from their own nation. So they developed a micro level, they developed some sort of empathy. And quantitative data supported qualitative findings. I'm not going to go over them in detail, but when we check out the post-test scores, both Turkish and Portuguese learners performed better in the post-test when it comes to their respect for cultural differences, interaction confidence, interaction enjoyment, attentiveness, and engagement. So, Hocam, do we still have time? Okay, so now let's conclude this study with some implications. First of all, I think telecollaboration should be incorporated to curricular activities because, you know, they not only enhance our learners' language skills, but also they promote our learners' intercultural knowledge, attitudes, and awareness, and it's a dream come true in language classrooms, to be honest. And students shouldn't be exposed to their target language to the target language only. They should be exposed to their own culture as well. Most of our students don't know their own culture. So in order to learn about other cultures, according to Michael Byram, students should know well about their own culture. And task design is important. To be honest with you, I recognize that in Turkey, most of the studies omit collaborative assignments. They focus on personal exchanges or comparison and analysis tasks. However, collaborative assignments are hard to conduct because, you know, Portuguese and Turkish students work together and have to work together. However, we shouldn't omit collaborative assignments because that part is when actually learners develop friendship notion. It's important. And my last suggestion should be this: we should conduct needs analysis. In my own study, the Portuguese learners and Turkish students were quite in a similar level, so they didn't feel anxious towards one another. However, when one group is really high in level and the other group is very low in level, students may feel anxiety and burden more. So these are my references. Thank you very much for listening. Hocam, if I have time, can I show some examples from my digital narratives?
Thank you.
I would like to show some examples from the collaborative assignments. We did this with Storybird website. As you can see, actually, you see the strategy of kindness here, because students said this: Hocam, I live in Portugal in summer and live in Turkey in winter. So they didn't omit one country. You see some kind of empathy and the strategy of politeness here. And then, because these were 5th grade learners, they focused on, you know, daily routines mainly. And they wrote this story together by correcting one another's mistakes. And by the way, you can see I love kalda verde, fish, yaprak sarma, and Turkish kebab because they included their own food in their daily, stories as well, because it was a kind of politeness. It was a form of empathy for them, actually. And this is it. Thank you very much.